Hello and welcome to the Grand Line Review, your source for everything One Piece. My name is Liam, and if your name is not Liam, then you are now contractually obligated to subscribe to the Grand Line Review, which will also result in consistent injections of One Piece culture administered directly into your YouTube feed. I don't make the rules, that's just how it is. But today we are here on our ongoing quest to discover the most unpopular One Piece opinions. And in this episode we are going to be exploring Gear 5th, debating the merits of Haki, as well as accusing Shanks of being a scarlet-headed charlatan, so all of the good stuff. But the first unpopular opinion we have to tackle is, why not do popular One Piece opinions? Not everyone was unpopular in high school. And look, that's true, but according to this poll that I ran on a whim after seeing this, almost 80% of Grand Fleet members were unpopular in high school, so we're just going to embrace that. Just as we're going to embrace that this video is sponsored by Keeps, a subscription service making it easy and affordable for men to treat male pattern baldness online. Did you know that 2 out of 3 guy men will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35, which is looking pretty dangerously close for me actually, only about half a decade away. And so the best way to prevent hair loss is to do something about it while you still have it. With Keeps, a licensed doctor will review your information online and recommend the right hair loss treatment plan, which will be shipped directly to your door every 3 months. Because prevention is key. These treatments typically take between 4 to 5 months to start seeing results, so it is important to act fast. The sooner you do it, the more units of hair that you shall save. So if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/grandlinereview or click the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. That's keeps.com/grandlinereview. But onwards now with some unpopular opinions, and we are going to start by tackling the ever wonderful topic of Gear 5th. I don't really want Gear 5th to be a thing in the future and would rather see more evolutions of Gear 4th instead. And yeah, I understand this feeling, to be honest. I mean, I do like the idea of a Gear 5th and how it could potentially function, but there's definitely a worry of going down that Super Saiyan path and just, continually adding numbers to things. That's what I really love about Gear 4th actually. The idea that you can just keep evolving that form to different situations and incorporating new techniques. It's entirely possible that everything is just going to be Gear 4th from here on out, because in terms of raw strength and speed, Luffy is already practically sitting at the pinnacle of the world. His struggles tend to be more against technicalities like, say, penetrating Kaido's scales, countering Katakuri's future sight, and even dealing with his own problems like the Gear 4th time limit and all of the weird restrictions around that. But that was not the only comment we received regarding Gear 5th this time around. Gear 5th would just make Luffy's gears feel overused and devalue them. And I would say it depends what Gear 5th actually is, but I can definitely see how you would feel that way. For example, Gear 4th pretty much completely devalues Gear 2nd and 3rd because it's a straight up power up. Gear 4th is faster than the speedy benefits of Gear 2nd, and it's also stronger than the punching benefits of Gear 3rd. So those two forms kind of lose relevance in the story, and these days they're only really used as warm-up attacks. So there is a danger with Gear 5th where if it does make Luffy more powerful, more agile, more durable, etc., then Gear 4th might become a little bit redundant. However, there are definitely options for Gear 5th that don't involve that sort of thing and are more about Luffy acquiring a new utility, and to explore those I highly recommend that you check out this here video specifically dedicated to Gear 5th. Gear 2nd is a badly written and badly explained power-up. Gear 3rd should have been it all, and is way better in terms of logic within the story and explanation. Wow, so much gear talk this episode. I suppose I don't necessarily disagree. It all depends on what you prioritize in terms of storytelling. Gear 2nd, look, it definitely came out of absolutely nowhere. There was nothing that flagged it like a traditional shonen story would, where for example you'd have a training arc or training time skip, but I personally really enjoy that because I find depicting training to be mostly a waste of time in manga. It's one of the things that really turned me off Bleach, for example. Every time that Ichigo would be forced to train just wore me down more and more and more. Logically speaking, yes, it was the correct step, and it does help bridge that gap of progression, because when Ichigo does whip out something new, we understand where it came from. But at the same time, I would argue that that step isn't necessarily, necessary. It's kind of like early filmmaking. Back in the late 1800s and early 1900s, if a character in your film wanted to do anything, let's say leave their home and go to some sort of shop, well, you couldn't just immediately cut to a new scene of the character at the shop. No. They needed to show the man walking to the shop, because that's the only way that audiences would understand how he got there. That's how I see most shonen training arcs, as authors very uncreatively and unintentionally insulting the intelligence of their audience and needing to show us this painfully slow and usually irrelevant process of the man walking to the shops. So I do appreciate that One Piece went so long without doing that. However, even within One Piece, training was eventually necessary, specifically when it came to Haki, and I think that it was handled very well by just stating that, yeah, this is going to happen, and then cutting to 2 years later after it had happened. Furthermore, Oda also tends to engage in in more active training, like how Luffy's fight against Katakuri was also very much a future sight training arc. Because One Piece is a series where we like to keep things moving and just sort of learn on the job. All of which is to say that I can forgive Gear 2nd's introduction because I liked the element of surprise, and I liked even more that we did not waste valuable chapters just showing Luffy walking to the shops. Brownbeard was a waste of a character and could have been top tier like the other beards. Yeah, you're right, they are all pretty top tier, aren't they? I mean, you've got Whitebeard, Blackbeard, Peachbeard, all absolute legends of One Piece. But this is something that I think about every now and then when I actually remember Brownbeard, which is, it's not very often. And I guess that's the problem. But the thing about this guy that is probably pretty difficult to believe is that he was actually pretty hype back in the day. If you don't remember, Brownbeard's first appearance was after Marineford when he assaulted an island that was once under the protection of Whitebeard. And he had this super sinister vibe about him. It was even theorized that he was going to be some sort of big enemy for the Straw Hats post-time skip, and what he became was, well, he became not that. Much less of a big bad enemy and much more of a big sad alligator man. What I do like though is that he was used to tell the story of another Worst Generation member because he was defeated by Basil Hawkins. So yeah, look, Brownbeard, he's a guy who exists. Nothing more, and potentially a lot less. Perispero didn't even kill Pedro, yet the allies make him look like a malicious killer. It's so true. Putting aside that Perispero is actually a malicious killer, but he did not actually kill Pedro, and I'd say that One Piece is verging on a bit of victim blaming here. I mean, look at it this way, no matter what prompted it, the Straw Hats invaded Totterland. They were party to a terroristic attack on Hawkegg Chateau, and so Perispero attempted to apprehend them, only to have Pedro blow himself up as a last-ditch effort, and now Perispero is accused of killing Pedro, something he absolutely did not do. And then I guess you can get into the discussion of, well, if it wasn't for Perispero, then Pedro wouldn't have had to kill himself, but that is very dangerous and very speculative territory. In the end, Pedro made a noble sacrifice, and Perispero, deranged and evil as he may be, was acting in the best interests of his psychopathic family. I'm not saying he's a good guy. He's not. He's an evil prick. But I also don't think that Perispero is any more responsible for Pedro's death than Big Mom is for abducting Sanji and starting this whole ordeal in the first place. Or any other Charlotte family members for that matter who acted and therefore contributed to this conclusion. Everyone is guilty of something, and Perispero, as much as Carrot may say otherwise, is not uniquely responsible for Pedro's actions. It is a very interesting issue though, and I would be keen to know what you all think, so please do let me know in the comments place below. Rebecca should have ate the Mera no Mi instead of Sabo, and Sabo should have fell down the stairs instead of Kuina. Fun. So this makes me very nostalgic because back in the early days of reading Dressrosa Weekly, this was actually a legitimate theory. I mean, not Sabo falling down the stairs, but Rebecca inheriting the Mera no Mi. This was before Sabo was introduced in the arc, and a lot of people thought that Rebecca was going to eat the Mera no Mi and become the next Straw Hat. And in retrospect, yes, it sounds utterly ridiculous. But at the time, it wasn't too far-fetched. At this point, so early on, Rebecca was the only character we knew of apart from Law who had this legitimate story to be explored on Dressrosa, and she did very much fit the traditional model of other Straw Hats like Nami, Robin, and Vivi, not just aesthetically either, but in terms of the narrative beats that Rebecca needed to hit. Then again, there was also a popular thought that Luffy would win the fruit and give it to Sanji, so Dressrosa was a pretty wild ride in terms of speculation. And speaking of speculation, I hate One Piece theories and people talk about them like it's canon and confirmed. So I think that theories are fine. They're what sustains a big part of the online fan base, honestly. But I do very much agree with people taking their theories and insisting that this thought I had in my brain and not in the series is now canon. It's not canon, it's pure fanon. But the worst part about all of this is when that theory inevitably turns out to be not true, also known as false. Because then certain overzealous theorists, seemingly insulted that Oda did not use their idea, will accuse him of bad writing. One Piece sucks, rah rah rah. Because that's what happens when you form an emotional attachment to your own theory. If it doesn't work out, then it feels like someone murdering your child. Or it can to some, and those some are definitely the minority of fans. They just happen to be very loud. In my experience though, most people are pretty thrilled when their theories turn out to be wrong, because Oda usually busts out something that surprises everyone, which is one of the best parts of One Piece. I mean, if it was predictable, then it would be boring. Odin is still Odin even when it's not boiled. Yeah, can't argue with that. I guess it could be cold or even room temperature to Odin, but there is no requirement for it to be boiled. Hancock's character is stronger when she's not around Luffy. So by stronger, I assume you mean just like better, and I would agree. I love Hancock in every scene she's in that does not involve Luffy. I like her stern, powerful, and cruel nature and how she interacts with the world around her, but as soon as the love-struck Luffy stuff comes in, she becomes very flat and one note. Popular opinion, Brook is the hottest of the Straw Hats. And look, I didn't ask for popular opinions. Well, Wallata Bulk? What is your name? Okay, we're moving on. Lucci is a bland and uninteresting villain. The only reason he's so loved is because he is the villain of such a loved arc. I do love his design though. Cool, so I think I touched on this recently in another video, but I can definitely see that. In the end, he doesn't interest me as much as villains like Doflamingo, Katakuri, even Kaido. And that's because Lucci, like I just described Hancock, is just a bit emotionally flat. Other than getting hard over killing and such, because that's what he does. Look at him. We all know it, and he doesn't deny it. With that said, I do think he was a good figurehead for an arc about the world government because he is this perfect, loyal operative, but every other member of CP9 tends to interest me a lot more than Lucci. And on a similar note, Spandau is a good villain. We all hate him because he's the worst, but that makes him one of the best villains. Yep, I despise Spandau. I want him to feel lots and lots of units of pain, but that means that Spandau is doing his job. Whilst Lucci was the cool, slick action spectacle fighting blah blah blah, Spandau was the one who I was emotionally invested in bringing down. So I guess in a way you could say that Lucci and Spandau function as a sort of a narrative team, and in the end both are framed extraordinarily well by the masterpiece that is Enies Lobby, so any weaknesses from either of them are more than forgivable in the grand scheme of things. Haki and Devil Fruits are perfect balance fight system. Okay, well this is a big topic, but I'd have to say that Devil Fruits are probably more balanced than Haki in my opinion, but even then there are problems of say someone eating a fruit that turns them into a mythical deity, whilst another person can eat a fruit that turns them into this like a cruddy little axolotl. So there is a slight imbalance at play there, but even then it's all about how you use that fruit. The Buddha man could still lose to an axolotlman depending on the skills of the users. Haki is a bit different because it's less of a unique skill to be wielded and more of a prerequisite that people need. So I guess in a way anyone who has the Haki required to compete, well they can compete, but is that really balance? Because it begins to exclude the vast majority of fighters in the series through no real fault of their own. Like no creativity can overcome Haki. Quite frankly, whoever has the most Haki generally wins. And also Conqueror's Haki isn't balanced at all because you need to be born with it. So yeah, I guess I'd say Haki is balanced in the same way that something like the global economy is balanced. If you have the money to compete, it's a wonderfully balanced system, and if you don't, then it probably feels incredibly imbalanced. True fact, Crocodile can kick Doflamingo's ass. So I'll counter that true fact with a fun fact. Crocodile to this day is still not a confirmed Haki user, and it's really weird because even his entry in the Vivier card data books makes no mention of Haki, so with what we currently know, I'm gonna have to go ahead and say no. Crocodile probably would not kick anything of Doflamingo's. Doflamingo being a man who masterfully uses all three types of Haki, he has an awakened Devil Fruit, and almost defeated a Gear 4th Luffy. Then on the other side we have Crocodile, a man who lost to a pre-time skip, pre-gear, and pre-Haki Luffy. So the odds are just not in favor of our Sandman. Shanks has a cabin of Straw Hats on the Red Force. He's been giving them out for years. So look, I don't know if this qualifies as an opinion, but I do like the thought. The idea that Shanks has just been going around gifting Straw Hats to young children and hedging his bets that one of them is going to be a great pirate someday so that he can say, yeah, I mentored that kid. Zoro needs character development. I feel like he hasn't had emotional/personal growth moment since Thriller Bark. I would certainly not be complaining with Zoro getting some more development, but that's the thing about One Piece. When you think about it, outside of the early arcs, the Straw Hats are never really the central focus of any given story. The emotional weight always gets put onto the arc-specific individuals, with some exceptions, like Whole Cake Island with Sanji. And this might sound kind of meh and boring, but many of the Straw Hats exist to serve as archetypes. It's the same sort of deal as when people complain that Luffy almost never experiences development. Well, that's because he developed in chapter 1, and the rest of the series is about him being the person he became and being uncompromising in his mission to become the Pirate King. We love Luffy because he does not falter, except for that one time when he faltered. But otherwise, he's an eternal ray of hope, and that's how I would describe Zoro as well. Just, less brightly, more dimly, and more demonically. He is an eternal alcoholic blade demon, and that's how I like him. Grand Line Review doesn't actually review the Grand Line. Well, damn, I guess I've been called out, so I should get on that. Just like how you had better get on this next video. There is always more to learn, experience, and enjoy about One Piece, so I look forward to seeing you there.